The Times of Israel reports, citing an unnamed American official, that about a dozen F-A-18 fighter jets from the USS Theodore Roosevelt have been flown to a military base in the Middle East. This is part of the Pentagon's efforts to protect Israel from possible attacks by Iran and its proxies, as well as to protect U.S. troops stationed at those bases. F-A-18 fighters and an E-2D Hawkeye reconnaissance aircraft took off from an aircraft carrier in the Gulf of Oman and arrived at an undisclosed base on Monday. United States Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin has ordered a military buildup in the region as officials worry about escalating violence in the Middle East following last week's assassination of a senior Hezbollah commander in Lebanon and a senior Hamas political leader in Iran. And it probably happened as a result of Israeli strikes. Both groups are supported by Iran. Iran claims the assassination of a senior Hezbollah commander and Hamas leader happened, but Israel neither confirms nor denies involvement. The situation remains unclear. The ground-based deployment of the U.S. Navy aircraft is expected to be temporary, as the F-22 squadron is heading to the same base as the Alaskan deployment. About a dozen F-22 Raptors are expected in the Middle East soon, but the exact arrival date and duration of their stay remain unclear. The timing may depend on developments, which could occur in the next few days. This is the comment of a U.S. official who spoke on condition of anonymity to the Times of Israel. Since the nature of any potential Iranian attack on Israel is unknown, journalists report that Iran may use various drones with ranges exceeding 2,000 kilometers, sufficient to reach Israel. And not only to Israel, and they fly at low frequencies, at low altitudes, to avoid detection by radar. That's the first thing. Secondly, Iran has one of the largest stockpiles of ballistic missiles in the world, and accordingly, they have missiles that can also fly over 2,000 kilometers. And it is unclear what the nature of these air attacks will be. Why are they talking about air attacks at all? Because the United States expects that this will be an attack with a large number of drones and with a large number of missiles of different classes, of different sizes and power, because they say that there may be a warhead weighing from 50 to 500 kilograms. But it's still just a guess, because it's not clear what role Hamas plays in this. It's not clear what role Hezbollah plays in this. It's not clear what role the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps plays in this. So Iran has a lot of options for attacking, and the question is whether it will use them, given the fact that there are various calls from different countries, including even Russia, that it should not do so now, because it could escalate into a regional confrontation with huge consequences for everyone. And we should remind ourselves that the United States has become very active in this regard, and it has sent both aircraft carrier groups and fighter jets to the region. And Biden last week held talks with the national security team about a possible Iranian attack on Israel. He met with intelligence officials and generals in the White House Situation Room to discuss increased security, as this affects U.S. interests, as Israel is one of the largest U.S. allies outside the North Atlantic Alliance. The United States will have to respond to this. The Biden administration has said that it is working to prepare to counter possible attacks and is mobilizing diplomatic pressure on Iran to try to minimize the response to the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Why are they talking about trying to minimize the response? Because, one way or another, Iran will have to answer for this action. Because it is an authoritarian country, They always make a response. Otherwise, they will look weak in the eyes of others. The key question will be how strongly they react and the nature of their response. Previous times, when Iran fired at Israeli territory, nothing happened. It was on April 13th, when our allies and partners were involved in repelling these attacks, Antony Blinken, after a meeting with Australian leaders. At the same time, Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin noted Monday's attack on U.S. forces in Iraq by an Iranian-backed militant group that wounded 7 soldiers and made it clear that the United States would not hesitate to respond. It is noteworthy that American forces at an airbase in Iraq were attacked with Katyusha missiles. But Austin is saying, make no mistake, the United States will not tolerate attacks on our personnel in the region, and we remain ready to deploy at short notice to respond to new threats to our security, our partners, or our interests. That's exactly what the United States is doing right now, pulling fighter jets, carrier strike groups, missile carriers, and aircraft carriers closer to the Middle East. He said the attack was carried out by an Iranian-backed Shiite militia group, but officials are still trying to determine which one it is. Blinken and Austin, I'll remind you, met with Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong and Defence Secretary Richard Marles at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis to discuss efforts to expand military cooperation and intensify efforts in the Asia-Pacific region. Their meeting took place amidst tensions in the Middle East, uncertainty, and escalating confrontation that could lead to a regional war. This may eclipse the Russian-Ukrainian war for a certain period of time, and it is important to understand that there may be no need to be disappointed or despairing about this. This will be a new phenomenon for the international community. Think of the Hamas attack on Israel and how long it took to talk about the Russian-Ukrainian war. Remember the Hamas attack on Israel, and no matter how long we talked about the Russian-Ukrainian war, it was in the context of the United States delaying funding for our country. Everyone was watching Israel deal with Hamas, and Hamas with Israel. And so we were a little bit on the back burner. So one way or another it will happen. The question is how quickly we will have to get out of it and how quickly we will be able to get out of it.